What the hell is this? Since when do we hire help straight out of the ghetto? The dining room froze, forks midair, silence thicker than sauce. Edward Hawthorne didn't lower his voice. His steel-gray eyes cut across the table to the young black woman standing at the end, holding a tray of water like it was evidence. Maya, calmly, would you like me to set this down before you embarrass yourself further, Mr. Hawthorne? Edward, embarrass myself. You're standing in my dining room, in that uniform, like this is your place, Maya. It's not my place, it's theirs. She tilted her head at the two small boys watching from the far end, Ethan and Eli, motionless, wide-eyed. Edward, my children don't need Maya. They need someone who doesn't flinch when they scream at night, someone who can get them to eat when they haven't touched a plate in days. A muscle ticked in his jaw. The butler, Harold, shifted uncomfortably. Edward, and you're telling me you can do that? You've been here, what, 2 hours? Maya, 2 hours? And they ate, they slept? You can ask Mrs. Keller. From the doorway, Mrs. Keller cleared her throat. It's true, sir. No nannies managed that since. She didn't finish the sentence. Edward's gaze hardened. You think a single good moment erases where you come from? Maya, steady. No, Mr. Hawthorne, it's where I come from that taught me how to survive rooms like this. His brow furrowed. Rooms like this, Maya. Rooms where someone, mistakes, skin for skill, accent for education, paycheck for worth. A faint gasp came from one of the house staff along the wall. Edward, careful. Maya, always, but never quiet when it matters. The twins looked between them. Ethan shifted in his chair. Daddy, she's the first one who stayed until we fell asleep. Edward's lips pressed thin. Miss, what was it? Maya Williams. Edward, no, before that. Her eyes didn't blink. Maya Simmons. Changed it to my grandmother's name when I turned 18. Edward, why hide it? Maya, I don't hide. I choose. Power shift. The air moved. The twins leaned toward her. Mrs. Keller's chin lifted. Even Harold looked impressed. Edward's voice dropped. If you're lying, Maya, then fire me before dessert. But if I'm telling the truth, then you'll see what I see already. 2 boys who don't need another stranger. They need someone who stays. Eli's small voice broke the pause. Can she stay, Daddy? Edward glanced at his sons, then back at Maya. His mouth tightened, but he didn't say no. Maya placed the tray down, straightened, and without another word, walked out. The boy's eyes followed her until she disappeared around the corner. Mrs. Keller spoke into the tension. Sir, maybe don't push away the ones who will. Edward didn't respond, but he didn't call her back to fire her either. Edward, you don't just walk out when I'm speaking to you. Maya paused in the hallway, hands at her sides. Then, maybe you should speak to me differently. He stepped closer, low voice edged like glass. I'm the one who decides who belongs here, Maya. And yet your sons asked me to stay. His jaw flexed. They don't understand the difference between help and family. Maya, maybe you don't either. Mrs. Keller appeared with a folded blanket. The boys are asking for her. Again, Edward's eyes narrowed. Already, Mrs. Keller, already, I'd call that progress. He waved her away, turning back to Maya. I don't know what game you're playing, but this house has rules, Maya, then write them down. For everyone. Edward, you think you can dictate terms. Maya, no, but I know chaos when I see it, and I've seen enough to know your sons live in it. He blinked. First crack. Watch your tone. Maya, I am. It's the same tone I'll use when I tell them they matter, whether you like me or not. Silence. Heavy dot from upstairs. Daddy. Ethan's voice. Edward didn't move. Neither did she. Maya, you can keep fighting me, Mr. Hawthorne, or you can notice that in the 2 hours I've been here, your children have eaten, slept, and laughed. He searched her face like there had to be a trick. Edward, why this job? Maya, because nobody else stayed. His brow furrowed. And what makes you different? She stepped past him toward the staircase. Asked them in the morning. Upstairs, camera cut. The boys sat cross-legged on the bed, pajamas rumpled, eyes lighting up when she entered. Ethan, you came back. Maya, I didn't leave. Eli held up a book, read the funny part again. She sat between them, reading, in a steady, warm tone. Down the hall, Edward leaned on the doorframe, unseen, watching his sons lean against her shoulders. Later, in his study, he called Harold. Edward, background check on Maya Williams. Full. Harold, already done, sir. Clean, raised in foster care, no red flags. Edward set the file down, frowning deeper. That's what bothers me. Mrs. Keller was stirring tea in the pantry, voice pitched just low enough to make it sound like a secret. 3 nights in, and not a single tantrum before bed. Tell me the last time that happened. Harold, polishing silver. Never, not in this house, not with these boys. At the kitchen island, 2 younger staff members leaned in. Did you hear? The first whispered, the second grinned. She made them eat broccoli. First, lies. Second, voluntarily. The pantry door swung open. Maya stepped in, holding a basket of folded laundry. The room froze for a second, not enough to hide the fact that she'd caught them mid-sentence. She set the basket down, eyes flicking from one face to the next. If you're going to talk about me, she said, say it loud enough for me to join in. Mrs. Keller coughed into her tea. We were saying the boys like you, Maya. That's mutual. Edward's voice came from behind her, sharp as a knife sliding out of its sheath. They like puppies too. Doesn't mean the puppies should run the house. Maya didn't turn immediately, just folded one more shirt before looking at him, over her shoulder. Puppies don't tuck them in when they wake up screaming. Edward, neither should you, without permission. Maya, they asked. I stayed. A muscle jumped in his jaw. You always have an answer, don't you? Maya, only when there's a question worth answering. From the doorway, a small voice. Ethan. We're making a sign. Edward's eyes slid toward his son. For what? Eli, stepping in behind his brother, for Miss Maya's room. The shift in the room was instant. 2 staff members tried not to smile. Mrs. Keller outright did. Edward, that's not Maya. They can tell you what it says. Ethan grinned. It says, you stay. Edward's expression didn't soften, but his voice lost its edge. We'll see, Maya. No, Mr. Hawthorne, you'll see that they already have. The boys exchanged a look, as if confirming something between themselves. Later, Maya was in the hall outside the twins' room, smoothing their blankets. Eli, are you really going to stay? Maya, if I have anything to say about it. Ethan, Daddy's stubborn. Maya, so am I. Downstairs, Mrs. Keller passed Edward in the study. Don't take her calm for weakness, she said, voice mild. Edward, I don't. Mrs. Keller, good, because around here, her kind of staying power's rare. The next morning the boy's sign was taped crooked on Maya's door, thick marker letters, slightly smudged but bold. You stay. Maya touched it once before opening the door. At the end of the hall. Edward saw her do it and didn't tell her to take it down. The breakfast room was flooded with light. Tall windows, pulling in the sharp, early sun, turning the silverware into lines of glare. The smell of brewed coffee drifted past the polished oak table. Edward sat at the head, posture like the chair had been built for him alone. His eyes were on his phone, thumb moving in short, precise swipes. Maya walked in carrying a plate stacked high with pancakes, steam curling from the top like a slow breath. She set it in front of the twins before speaking. Phones down at meals. House rule. Edward didn't glance up. Whose house? She poured syrup in a slow, steady stream. The one your kids live in. That got his eyes up. A flicker of irritation passed through the stillness of his face. Careful. She moved to pour juice. Always. Ethan. We made a new rule last night. Edward's gaze didn't leave Maya. Did you? Eli. Pancakes on Sundays. Edward's mouth curved just enough to suggest a challenge. That's not Maya. Agreed. She placed a plate at his setting. The sound of porcelain meeting marble, a quiet punctuation. Sign it and we'll post it on the fridge. His brow lifted. Sign it, Maya. A rule's only real if everyone follows it. For a moment, no one moved. Even the ticking clock in the corner seemed louder. Then Edward reached for the pen beside his plate, signed the scrawled paper the boys had brought, and set it down without a word. An hour later, the study door clicked, shut behind him and Maya. The space was darker, lined with books, smelling faintly of leather and paper. You're undermining me in front of my children, he said. Maya stood in the same place she'd entered, hands resting lightly on the back of a chair. I'm including you. His voice sharpened. Don't play semantics with me, Maya. They need rules they believe in, not rules they fear. Edward leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes narrowing. And you think I don't know my own children? She didn't blink. I think you know the version of them who stopped trying, the pen in his hand still. That was the first visible crack. A knock. The door opened just enough for the twins to appear, holding a paper between them. Eli, we made another one. Edward's voice carried the faintest edge of disbelief. Already? Ethan, yeah, this one's for everyone. He took the paper. No yelling in the morning. His eyes lingered on the words longer than necessary. Maya stayed silent, letting the weight of it sit. Edward looked at her, then back at the boys. We'll see, Maya, or we'll try. The boys smiled, exchanging a quiet glance before stepping back into the hall. That evening, the air in the hallway felt different, lighter somehow. Maya passed Mrs. Keller, who was carrying folded linens. You're pushing him faster than anyone's dared in years, Mrs. Keller said without looking up. Maya, he'll either bend or break. Mrs. Keller gave her a sidelong glance. Careful. He's used to breaking people, Maya. So am I. Mrs. Keller didn't respond, just kept walking. But Maya saw the small curve of approval in her lips. The afternoon sun slanted across the school parking lot, bouncing off windshields in sharp flashes. Edward's black SUV rolled to a stop, engine humming low. He was on his phone when Maya stepped out from the passenger side. The boys spotted her before him, small figures, at the far end of the walkway, backpacks bouncing, voices carrying over the noise. Miss Maya. Ethan ran ahead, waving. Eli followed close behind. A woman in a navy cardigan intercepted them, their teacher. Smiling like she'd just witnessed something rare. Mr. Hawthorne, she said as Edward stepped out. Yes. His tone carried the weight of someone who was used to problems being brought to him. The teacher held a clipboard to her chest. I thought you should know. Both boys have perfect attendance this month. Not a single incident. First time since. She paused, eyes flicking toward the boys. Well, first time. Edward blinked once. Boft is new. Maya, standing just behind him, said softly, not new, noticed. Ethan, we got to be helpers in class today. Eli, I didn't cry at all. Edward looked down at them, his face still unreadable. Good job. Maya's eyes shifted toward him. Say it so they hear it. His gaze met hers for half a second, something passing between them before he crouched down slightly. Good job, both of you. Ethan's mouth twitched into a smile. Eli looked at his shoes but didn't hide the small nod. In the car, the boys talked over each other, voices spilling with the small details that mattered to them. A project about animals, a new friend named Jamie, the gold star stickers. Edward drove, one hand on the wheel, listening more than usual. Maya watched him watch them in the rearview mirror. When they pulled into the driveway, Ethan leaned forward. Can Miss Maya come to see our project? Edward started to answer, but Maya cut in gently. If your dad says yes. There was a beat, then, yes. That night at dinner, the atmosphere was different. The boys were calmer, eating without the constant fidgeting. Mrs. Keller placed a casserole on the table. They even did their homework before I had to remind them. Edward's fork paused midair. Really? Maya didn't look up from cutting Eli's chicken. Turns out, they work better when they know someone's paying attention. Later, Edward found a folded piece of paper on his desk. Crayon drawings of all four of them. Edward, the twins, and Maya. They were holding hands. No one had signed it, but the colors gave it away. Ethan's heavy blue, Eli's light green. He set it down slowly, not tossing it aside like he did most of the boys' desk clutter. In the hallway, he passed Maya carrying a laundry basket. Edward, they've improved. Maya, they've been seen. He didn't respond right away, just watched her disappear into the twins' room. The rain had been steady all evening, tapping the tall windows in rhythmic bursts. The house felt heavier in the wet, quiet. Edward stood in the doorway of the twins' room, watching. Maya sat at the edge of Ethan's bed, reading in a low voice from a book, her tone even and unhurried. Both boys were curled close, eyes half closed. When she finished the page, she tucked the blanket tighter around Ethan and set the book aside. That's when she saw him. Edward, you were in my room again. Her brows drew slightly together. With your sons. They couldn't sleep. Edward, that's not your space, Maya. Neither is fear, but they've been living in it. His voice sharpened. You think you're saving them. You're temporary. She stood, matching his height in the narrow doorway. Then why are they finally sleeping? The pause between them felt like a held breath. His jaw worked, but no words came immediately. From the bed, Ethan's voice cut through. Stop yelling. Edward turned, caught the expression on his son's face. Not anger, not defiance. Something quieter, something that looked too much like disappointment. Eli's voice followed, softer. We can hear you, even when you whisper. Edward's eyes flicked to Maya. You're teaching them to challenge me. Maya, no, I'm teaching them not to shrink. His gaze tightened. And you think that's your place? She didn't break eye contact. It's every adult's place. The silence stretched. Rain tapped harder against the glass. Finally, Edward stepped back from the doorway. You're bold. Maya's voice didn't rise, but it carried, I'm necessary. Later, in the kitchen, Mrs. Keller was wiping down the counters when Edward walked in. Mrs. Keller, stormy night. Edward only half heard her, reaching for a glass. She glanced at him. The boys have been calmer since she arrived. Edward, they're more vocal. Mrs. Keller, same thing. If you're not afraid of it, upstairs. Maya was tucking away the book she'd read earlier. The boy's breathing had already settled into the deep rhythm of sleep. She stood in the doorway for a moment, just listening. When she stepped into the hall, Edward was there, not blocking her way. Just there. He didn't speak. She didn't either. But for the first time, he didn't look at her like an intrusion. The community center gym smelled faintly of floor polish and popcorn. Folding chairs lined the basketball court, each seat filled with parents and restless siblings. The twins stood on stage, small in their pressed shirts, clutching papers for the school's heroes presentation. Edward sat 3 rows back, suit sharp as ever, scanning emails on his phone. Maya was next to him, eyes fixed on the boys. Ethan, my hero is Miss Maya. The sound of his voice stopped Edward mid-scroll. Eli, she helps us with homework, makes us eat vegetables, and makes sure we're not scared at night. A ripple of soft laughter moved through the audience. Maya shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, but the boys went on. Ethan, she's brave, even when people are mean. Eli, and she listens, even when we're loud. When the applause came, Edward didn't move at first. Then, slowly, he set his phone down and clapped, not the perfunctory kind, but measured, deliberate, eyes on the stage. Maya didn't look at him, but she felt it. After the ceremony, parents crowded the stage. The twins ran to Maya, first arms tight around her waist. Edward approached, expression unreadable. Quite a speech. Maya, I didn't write it. Edward, but you earned it. She met his gaze, searching for any trace of mockery. There wasn't any. A teacher in a red scarf joined them. Mr. Hawthorne, I have to say, your boys have made remarkable progress. Whatever you're doing at home, keep doing it. Edward glanced at Maya before replying. I intend to. The teacher smiled and moved on. Maya caught the way the boys looked between them, like they'd just witnessed something important. In the parking lot, rain had left dark patches on the asphalt. Ethan, can we get ice cream to celebrate? Edward opened his mouth, but Maya was quicker. Homework first. The twins groaned in unison. Edward almost smiled. We'll see. Later that evening, Edward passed the fridge on his way to the study. The boys' crooked "You Stay" sign was still taped there, and now, next to it, a fresh crayon drawing of the stage, with Maya standing between them. He didn't take it down. The morning felt different, not lighter exactly, but less sharp around the edges. The clatter of dishes in the kitchen was quieter, the voices softer. Maya poured coffee into 2 mugs instead of 1. She didn't think about it, just set one at Edward's place before he walked in. He paused, glanced at it. I didn't ask for Maya. It's hot. Drink it or don't. He didn't move for a second, then sat and took a sip without comment. Mrs. Keller leaned against the counter, watching the exchange, with a small smile. Mrs. Keller, never thought I'd see the day. Harold, which one? Mrs. Keller, where she hands him coffee and he doesn't throw it back. At the fridge, the twins were taping up another rule. Eli, no shouting from different rooms. Ethan, you have to come talk in person. Edward glanced at it on his way to the study. Seems inefficient. Maya seems human. He didn't take it down by midweek. Other changes had settled in. The boys' shoes lined neatly by the door. Dinner starting on time. Even the groundskeeper commented, place feels steadier. Edward overheard it while passing through the hallway. He didn't respond, but later, he found himself adjusting the stack of mail so it sat evenly on the table. One evening, during dinner, the boys began their 2 good things ritual. Ethan, first good thing, Miss Maya made the best spaghetti. Eli, second good thing, Dad played basketball with us. The table went still for half a beat. Edward cleared his throat. I was tricked into it. Maya, you stayed for 3 games. He didn't argue. After the boys went upstairs, Mrs. Keller lingered in the doorway. Mrs. Keller, they're laughing more. Edward looked up from his plate. The boys, Mrs. Keller, everyone. That night, Edward passed the twins' room on his way to his own. He stopped when he heard it. Low giggles, the sound of Maya's voice reading, the rustle of blankets. He stood there longer than he meant to. Then, without knocking, he opened the door just enough to see them. Ethan, Dad, come listen to this part. He almost said no. Instead, he stepped inside and leaned against the wall. Maya didn't stop reading. That it was a Thursday afternoon when Harold knocked on Edward's study door, a manila envelope in his hand. Harold, you need to see this. Edward slit it open, pulled out a single-page letter. His expression didn't change, but his grip on the paper tightened. In the kitchen, Maya was rinsing dishes when Edward walked in, letter in hand. Edward, someone says you've been stealing. The words landed like a stone. She turned off the faucet, wiped her hands, and faced him. From who? Edward, from me. Jewelry missing from the upstairs safe. Maya's voice stayed level. I don't know the combination to your safe. Edward, you could have learned it. Maya, and you could have asked your sons where the key is. His eyes narrowed. You're not denying it strongly enough. She stepped closer. Because I don't need to perform innocence for you. Mrs. Keller entered mid-tension, pausing. Sir, the safe key was in your cufflink box yesterday. I put it back after polishing. Edward looked between them, jaw tight. So it moved itself. Maya, or someone moved it for you to find gone. That evening, the twins found her in the garden, kneeling near the lavender. Eli, why are you out here, Maya? Because it's quiet, Ethan. Dad's mad. She brushed soil from her hands. He's deciding. Upstairs, Edward replayed the last weeks in his mind. The calmer meals, the new rules, the way the boys laughed more. The letter sat on his desk like it was waiting for him to sign off on a decision. Instead, he walked to the twins' room. Edward, do you trust Miss Maya? Two voices, without pause, yes. The next morning, he walked into the kitchen holding the letter. Maya was pouring cereal. Edward, it's fake. Harold traced it to a dismissed housekeeper from 2 years ago. She wanted a payout. Maya didn't look up. So you're telling me I can stay? Edward, I'm telling you I was wrong to think you couldn't. She finally met his eyes. That's the closest I'm getting to an apology, isn't it? Edward, for now. Later, she found the letter torn neatly in half, dropped into the trash. On the fridge, the boys had posted a new rule in shaky marker. Believe people until they give you a reason not to. The ballroom was already humming when they arrived. The kind of hum you feel in your ribs before you hear it. Expensive perfume mixing with polished brass notes from the jazz quartet in the corner. The clink of crystal glasses. The rise and fall of well-rehearsed laughter. Edward Hawthorne belonged here, in the way a chess piece belongs on its square, placed, expected, immovable. The dark suit was tailored so precisely that it didn't move when he did. Maya walked half a step behind him. Not because he'd told her to, he hadn't, but because she didn't know what this space expected of her yet. The floor gleamed, chandeliers dripping light onto the marble in a way that made every step feel loud. The twins were ahead, darting toward the desert table in their matching navy blazers. Mrs. Keller had stayed home. This was Edward's night, and he'd decided without explanation that Maya should come. She didn't miss the way eyes followed her when they entered. The glances weren't curious so much as measuring, like people counting pieces on a board before deciding their next move. Edward leaned toward her without looking at her. Edward, you don't have to talk to anyone you don't want to, Maya, and if someone talks to me, Edward, you'll know which ones to ignore. A man in a gray suit, the kind of man who'd spent his life in boardrooms, intercepted Edward within minutes. Maya caught phrases like merger and portfolio, but her focus drifted to the twins across the room. Ethan was already wiping chocolate from his face with a napkin that was too small to help. She took a step toward them, but Edward's voice stopped her. Edward, they're fine. Not here to be managed tonight, Maya. They're here to be seen, though. He gave her a look, not sharp, but waited before turning back to the conversation. When the house lights dimmed slightly, the murmuring settled. A soft chime rang, and a man from the event staff approached Edward. Staffer, time to announce the foundation award, sir. Edward's fingers tapped once against his glass before he set it down. He moved toward the podium with the easy authority of someone who had been stepping onto stages his whole life. The speech began the way these speeches always do, thanking the donors, mentioning the year's accomplishments, hinting at bigger plans to come. But then, without warning, his tone shifted. Edward, there's someone here tonight who has done more for my sons than I ever managed to see at first. The crowd murmured softly. Maya felt her shoulders tense. Edward, when she came into our home, it was colder than I realized. Quieter, too, not in a good way. My sons had learned to make themselves small, from the desert table. Ethan and Eli had stopped mid-bite. Edward, she didn't just keep them fed or get them to school on time. She taught them to stand tall, to question me, to laugh loudly, and she's done what no one else could. Looked up from his notes and let the pause hang just long enough for the room to lean forward. Edward, she stayed. A subtle hand gesture toward the back of the room. The spotlight swung. It landed on Maya. She blinked against the sudden heat of it, the gold light turning her black dress into a sharp silhouette. The applause began, polite at first, then swelling, as the twins shouted from the dessert table, "Ethan, Miss Maya, Eli, over here." The laughter was warmer this time. Maya's feet felt heavy, but she moved forward, the crowd parting just enough for her to pass. Every step felt like it echoed, even over the sound of clapping hands. At the podium, Edward held a small plaque for exceptional service. It read in engraved letters, but the way he looked at her said something more private, something the plaque couldn't hold. Maya, you know I don't need this. Edward, I do. They stood there for a moment longer than the room expected, enough for the twins to squeeze between legs and plant themselves beside her. Later, after the speeches and the photos and the awkward small talk, she found herself outside in the garden terrace, leaning against the railing. The city stretched below, the lights pulsing faintly through the haze. Footsteps approached, light ones. "Eli, we told Dad to say your name." "Ethan, he said he was going to anyway." Maya smiled faintly. "I believe you both." They stayed there a while, their small hands resting on the cold iron rail beside hers. Edward found them like that. He stood in the doorway for a moment before speaking. "Edward, they want to ride home with you." Maya raised an eyebrow. "And you're letting them?" "Edward, they're better off where they feel safe." Maya. That almost sounded like trust. "Edward, don't push it." But his voice had no edge. In the car, the twins leaned against Maya on either side, their voices fading into drowsy mumbles. Edward drove without the usual background call or news radio, just the hum of the road and the occasional swish of passing cars. Halfway home, Ethan stirred. "Ethan, Miss Maya." "Maya. Ethan, can you stay forever?" She didn't answer right away. "I'll stay as long as I'm wanted." In the rearview mirror, she caught Edward's eyes flick toward her, then back to the road. Back at the house, the kitchen was dim except for the warm light over the fridge. The boys padded in ahead, rummaging for markers. They taped a fresh sheet of paper onto the door. In shaky block letters, it read, "No one leaves without saying goodbye." Edward walked over, read it, and without a word, picked up the marker. In deliberate strokes, he added his name underneath. Much later, after the boys were in bed, Maya walked through the quiet house. She passed the study, where Edward sat with a glass in hand, not working, just sitting. He didn't call out to her, but as she passed, he spoke without looking up. "Edward, you did more than stay. You changed the temperature." She paused in the doorway. "And you let it change." He nodded once, eyes still on the glass. "Don't leave without saying goodbye." For the first time, Edward didn't just allow Maya into his world. He made her part of it, in public and in private. And this time, it was on record.